Over the past few years, there have been pressing concerns about the rights of Muslim women around the world. Media outlets and international organizations have been advocating for change in Islamic states, and even women have started taking to the streets to speak up against years of oppression. From being forced to sleep with strangers, to save their marriages, to having personal freedoms restricted, Muslim women have been subjected to some very terrible laws. Let's look at 12 of the strangest rules that Muslim women must follow. Number 12. Sleeping with strangers to save their marriage. A Muslim man can instantly divorce his wife if he says talaq 3 times in a row. The marriage is instantly annulled and the couple cannot get back together again. Even though this practice of instant divorce is banned in most Muslim countries, it still happens way too often and is generally accepted by society. The only way for the woman to get back to her husband once she has been divorced is by participating in a thing called halala. This concept is controversial, to say the least, but it is necessary according to some Islamic clerics. Halala involved the divorced woman marrying someone else, consummating the marriage, and then getting divorced. Only after doing this, the woman is allowed to remarry her original husband. In most countries, these temporary marriages don't have any legal standing. Even the concept of simply saying talaq, thrice to end a marriage, is considered to be bizarre. Most couples who end things in this way often do so in a fit of rage, and they usually regret their decision later. More often than not, they just want to reconcile and get back together again, but the practice of halala stops them from doing so. There are clerics in mosques as well as people online who offer these services to women seeking a halala. However, the women are at risk of being financially exploited, blackmailed, and even abused. There was a case where an undercover reporter, posing as a divorced Muslim woman, was asked for £2,500 in England. The man claimed that she needed to pay the money so he could sleep with her to complete the marriage, after which he would divorce her, and she could remarry her ex-husband. There have also been cases where women go to mosques in search of halala services. Some women have recounted how there were designated rooms for this activity, and how they were used for months. Many of the Islamic organizations around the world condemn this practice, and they have declared it to be forbidden. However, the sad reality is that some communities still believe in such concepts even today. What do you think of this practice? Let us know in the comments. Number 11. Not allowed in soccer stadiums. One of the most bizarre restrictions on women in Muslim countries is that they are often not allowed to enter stadiums. This ban was most famously imposed in countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia, but there are also many other nations that restrict the movement of women in sports arenas. On March 29, 2022, Iranian authorities stopped dozens of women from entering the Imam Reza football stadium in the city of Mashhad. According to reports, excessive force was used against women to prevent them from watching a soccer match live. This ban is not new either. It has been implemented in Iran for over more than 40 years. There are no written laws or regulations against women attending sports games in stadiums, but the authorities have regularly enforced them nonetheless. It has led to countless arrests, beatings, detention, and abuses against women. Most famously, in September 2019, a female soccer fan, Sahar Kodayari, known as the Blue Girl, was sentenced to jail for trying to enter a stadium. She later set herself on fire in front of a Tehran court after finding out she was sentenced to 6 months in prison. Her only crime was that she disguised herself as a man and tried to enter the stadium. Cases like these sparked outcries all over the world, and FIFA had to step in to get countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran to stop the discrimination against women. The ban on women was lifted in Saudi in 2018, and Iran followed suit years later in 2023. Even though women are finally allowed in most stadiums after years of campaigning, there are still places where they are not admitted. There are quotas imposed to limit the number of tickets sold to women, and they are often seated far away from the pitch on second tiers. They are also under the severely watchful eye of the morality police and are segregated from the men. This makes it difficult for them to meet up with their families after the game. Have you ever heard of similar bans? Leave your comments below. Number 10. Can't marry non-Muslim men. Islam differentiates between men and women in many ways. However, one of the laws can be seen as discriminatory in modern times. While Muslim men are allowed to marry Christian or Jewish women in some cases, Muslim women are explicitly forbidden from marrying a non-Muslim man regardless of their faith. Scholars argue that since men are supposed to be the head of the house, they are responsible for their wives. That means that they should also respect the faith and beliefs of their Christian and Jewish wives. Scholars claim that Islam guarantees these rights, but other religions do not afford the same liberties to Muslim women who want to marry non-Muslim men. Another reason for this restriction on women is the matter of children. Muslims believe that it is difficult to raise religiously correct children given the current influences of the media. According to them, it becomes infinitely more difficult to raise their children correctly if one of the parents isn't Muslim. This argument holds true even for Muslim men who are looking for non-Muslim wives. While the concept is acceptable in Islam, it is highly discouraged even for men. The exceptions are rare in the eyes of clerics and scholars, and even then Muslim men are not allowed to marry who are polytheists or atheists. They believe that a couple should live their lives in harmony and love with each other, and differences in religious ideologies may lead to disagreements in the future. Should Muslim women be allowed to marry whomever they want? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. Number 9. Not allowed to drive. Women in many Islamic countries are not allowed to drive any vehicle. These bans were even implemented in Saudi Arabia before they decided to lift them for good. Several Muslim scholars and clerics claim that it is unacceptable for women to drive. One of the clerics even claimed that if a woman owned a car, her husband or male guardian wouldn't have any control over her anymore. She can then go out whenever she wants, and it could lead to her committing sins. Women who drove in Saudi Arabia risked being arrested and fined. However, the Saudi government decided it was time for a change in 2018. The current king of the country, Mohammed bin Salman, was working on a plan to reform and transform society in Saudi Arabia by 2030. To make that happen, he wanted to increase the number of women in the workforce. They needed to be able to drive to work. Even though there were some pushbacks from certain religious groups, the king reassured the people that this was not a religious issue, merely a social one. This was a big step for the Women to Drive campaign in Saudi Arabia, as they had been arguing for years to get the law changed. The laws may be becoming more tolerant in Saudi Arabia, but there are still Islamic states in the world where women are not allowed to drive in public. Number 8. Wearing perfume in public is prohibited. According to some Muslim scholars, it is forbidden for women to wear perfume in public. This is especially applicable if they are going out to a mixed-gender gathering in office spaces, or even if they are going to mosques. They claim that men can smell the scent every time a woman passes by, and it can lead to sinful thoughts or acts. Muslim women are taught that by using strong scents, they may attract unwanted and undue attention, so they should be modest when it comes to all direct and indirect interactions with the opposite sex. However, they are allowed to use perfume at home in front of their husbands or male guardians. In fact, wearing pleasing scents for their husbands is highly encouraged for Muslim women. It is seen as an effort to satisfy him, and is thought of as a positive action in a marriage. But purposefully putting on perfumes to attract the attention of non-mahram men is considered to be a major sin. The women may also wear whatever fragrance they like if they are in the company of other women. They are also allowed to wear deodorants or lighter scents to dispel body odor. The dominant condition is that men outside the family should not be able to smell them. There are some restrictions on the type of perfumes that Muslim women are allowed to wear, though. Some scholars say that only pure perfume oils should be used, but most modern perfumes contain a mixture of scented oils and alcohol carriers. As the consumption of alcohol is forbidden in Islam, the use of such perfumes is a gray area. Number 7. Not allowed to go out alone. Muslim women are generally not allowed to travel alone, especially when they need to go out of town. In such cases, a woman must be accompanied by her husband, or a male guardian, who is known as mahram. Even though this rule is slowly dying out, certain countries like Afghanistan still enforce it to the fullest. Women are not even allowed to leave the premises of their homes without their mahram. This not only makes it an inconvenience for the ladies, but also for the men who have to take time out, especially to escort them out of the home. Other Islamic countries do not enforce this rule on women who just have to leave their homes for a little while. However, if a woman has to travel abroad, then she must be accompanied by her mahram. Some scholars think that this practice is not applicable in modern times. In ancient Arabia, it was much more risky for women to travel across the desert alone, so it was decreed that a male guardian or their husbands must accompany them. The journeys back then usually took days, and there were threats of raiders and animals on the road. These days, traveling alone is way safer, and smartphones and the internet have given everyone the means to stay connected at all times. Number 6. Specific dress code. Muslim women have very particular guidelines when it comes to clothing, and it differs for every sect of Islam. Most scholars agree that a woman has to completely cover herself, except for her hands and face when appearing in public. However, some say that even the hands and the face must be covered. The women are taught from an early age that they must not wear tight or revealing clothes at all, and they must be covered from head to toe at all times. They are allowed to dress a little more freely at home, in front of family, their mahram, or other women. Wearing pants, tights, or trousers in the public is completely out of the question. According to clerics, through pants, it is easy to define the thighs and legs of a woman, and it is not acceptable in Islam for a woman to expose these parts. Even though they may be completely covered, such clothes make it possible to see the shape of their bodies. Women are told to wear a burqa or an abaya on top of their clothes when they go out in public. These pieces of clothing are essentially like a long and baggy robe that covers them from the neck down to their feet. Women must also cover their heads with scarves. Another part of the rule says that the abaya or burqa must go below their ankles. People believe that the intention behind this particular dress code for women is to promote humility, dignity, and respect for themselves and others. Number 5. Can't call out men for cheating. Probably the most well-known fact about Islam is that Muslim men are allowed to have up to 4 wives. Even though the reason for this was based on practicality back in the day, Muslim men today choose to only focus on the fact that they can marry multiple women at the same time. Originally, polygamy was allowed to only men with financial means, and even then they could only marry widows or women with no male guardians. Things are very different in modern times, and there are not many practical reasons for them to have more than one wife. However, polygamy is accepted and even encouraged in some Muslim countries today. To make matters worse, some scholars and clerics think that women have no right to call their husbands out. Even then, Muslim women are raising their voice against polygamy. This led to a Saudi cleric stating that it was forbidden for women to call their polygamist husbands cheaters. He said that cheating is used to describe illicit relationships and adultery, and since the man is entering a public marriage contract, then it is not the same as cheating. Some scholars even say that women should support their husbands in their polygamous relationships. They are not allowed to be angry and upset with their husbands for taking a second, third, or fourth wife. Instead, they should be helping their husbands so they can treat all their wives fairly and equally. There are a few scholars, though, who say that a woman has every right to refuse her husband from marrying again. Monogamy is the preferred state of marriage in Islam, and a man should ask permission from his wife if he wants to marry again. In most Islamic states, the women are under no obligation to accept a polygamous relationship. Even though the practice is acceptable under Islamic laws, nations in line with modern values don't support it. What are your thoughts on polygamy? Tell us in the comments below. Number 4. Plucking eyebrows is a sin. One of the weirdest rules that Muslim women have to follow is that they cannot pluck or shape their eyebrows in any way. The interesting part is that women are allowed to remove hair from almost all other parts of their bodies, but for some reason, they just cannot touch their eyebrows. According to some scholars, they are even allowed to remove the hair from between the eyebrows. There are obviously various schools of thought on the issue, but most of them agree that plucking or shaping eyebrows is a sin, particularly if they appear to be unnatural. Some scholars claim that it is a sin to change God's creation no matter what the reason is. Others say that plucking or shaping eyebrows is permissible for married women if they are doing it for their husbands. In any case, the restrictions are mostly imposed on unmarried women. In most extreme cases, if the eyebrows are too bushy or overgrown, even unmarried women are allowed to shape them to a certain degree. As long as they do not resemble immoral women and don't expose themselves to non-mahram men, they are allowed to shape their eyebrows. While this rule is most implemented in more conservative societies, there are some Islamic countries where this isn't enforced. Women are free to groom themselves as they see fit, as long as they don't overly expose themselves to other men. Have you ever had your eyebrows shaped? Drop a comment below. Number 3. Unequal inheritance rights. According to Islamic law, a Muslim woman does not have an equal share in inheritance to that of a man. If a father dies and leaves behind only a son and a daughter, then the son will have claim to 2/3 of the inheritance, whereas the daughter will only have 1/3 of the total. In most modern societies, the inheritance is divided equally among the siblings, regardless of their gender. But in Islamic law, women are only entitled to half of their male counterparts' inheritance. Obviously, there are some exceptions, as the inheritance laws are not always straightforward depending on the relationship of a woman to the deceased. But generally, women almost always end up with the shorter end of the stick. Muslim scholars claim that since the financial responsibility relies on men, they have a higher claim in any inheritance. The women are largely supposed to be dependent on their husbands, fathers, or brothers, which accounts for their smaller share under Islamic laws. This particular law can be seen as regressive by most modern societies. Women have more economic opportunities and freedom around the world, and they are independent even in most Islamic countries. However, the laws of inheritance are clear, and there have been no changes to it over the years. Number 2. Women are seen as unreliable witnesses. The status of a woman's testimony in Islam is largely disputed. Some societies outrightly reject women witnesses, while others accept them conditionally, provided they have another woman backing them up, and some accept testimonies from women without any gender bias. Most scholars cite a verse from the Holy Quran stating that women can be forgetful in court, and they might require another female witness to remind them about their testimony. While this might imply that women are not very reliable witnesses, Muslims argue that this does not mean that men are superior to women. Scholars say that 2 women were only asked to serve together as witnesses in financial matters. In the past, women were not educated as well as men were, and they were not usually involved in business transactions. So it was natural for them not to have reliable knowledge on the matter. There might even be cases when a reliable female witness may be unable to appear in court due to pregnancy, nursing, or childbirth. So a second female witness was sent to relay the testimony. Some clerics claim that the second female witness might even be present for moral support. The court could be an intimidating place for a woman, and having another female witness around would help in reducing the stress. Others argue that the verse in question is about a woman witnessing a contract and not appearing for testimony in front of a judge. They claim that a woman's testimony in court is worth the same as a man's. Number 1. Women are not allowed to work. Even though many Muslim women around the world are an important part of the workforce, there are some countries where they are not allowed to work at all. Afghanistan under Taliban rule is particularly very strict on employment for women. They are barred from going to school, working outside their homes, and seeking employment with NGOs. According to Islamic laws, women are only allowed to work if their husbands or guardians do not make enough money. Even in cases where women are permitted to seek employment, laws in countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia dictate that they cover themselves completely. They should also not have any unnecessary interaction with men and be modest at all times. The law also says that women should seek permission from their guardians or husbands if they want to work outside their homes. The husband have the right to deny their wives if they think her job is incompatible with the family's interest or could be a source of indignity for them. For example, Iran has banned women from working in coffee shops and cafes. The government feels that the job doesn't suit women and attracts undue attention to them. Most Muslim women in the West have no problems in dressing according to Islamic laws. However, the rise of Islamophobia has made it increasingly difficult for them to find decent employment. In countries like France, Russia, and Netherlands, Muslim women are often denied opportunities. And even if they manage to land a job, they face constant harassment and prejudice in the workplace. Competence and education has little to do with the discrimination, as these ladies are highly capable. The ban on wearing headscarves is particularly problematic for them. Even Russia, with around 20 million Muslims, has shown reluctance in accepting women who choose to cover their heads in public. That's all we have for you today. Don't forget to leave a like and share. Click on the screen for more content like this. See you in the next one.